Estaremos aquí atentos al chat y también el WhatsApp para cualquier apoyo necesario.
Gracias, Cami. Muy bien.
Olá, Santiago.
Hola, Carlos, qué gusto. Buena tarde.
Mussi, eu creio que talvez a Camila tenha te passado, mas na parte dos avisos, quando você informar as pessoas que há tradução e interpretação simultânea, se possível, também peça para elas se apresentarem no chat box do YouTube e falar de onde estão falando. Camila já te passou, né? Mas é só para confirmar aqui nessa parte de recados, tá bom?
A lá TikTok.
Isso, obrigada.
Podem começar.
Alô? Boa tarde. Buenas tardes. Good afternoon. I'm going to speak in Portuguese. Vou falar em português porque temos.
Good afternoon. I will be speaking in Portuguese since we have simultaneous interpreting in 3 languages: English, Spanish, and Portuguese.
Interpretação simultânea em inglês, português e espanhol. No canal do YouTube, você pode escolher seu idioma.
You can choose your language of choice on the YouTube channel. Very well, then. I would like for you to identify yourselves on the YouTube chat and on the Zoom platform so that we know who you are and where you are joining us from. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I am Carlos Mussi, Director of the ECLAC office in Brazil, and I am both pleased and honored to kick off the launch event of the OPCC Virtual Platform and Legislative Data Monitor, the Parliamentary Climate Change Observatory. So the Parliamentary Observatory on Climate Change and Just Transition, OPCC, is a joint initiative led by parliamentarians from various Latin American and Caribbean countries. The goal of the OPCC is to provide a shared information tool relative to the status and the situation of environmental legislation and parliamentary proceedings throughout the region. It also aims to be a regional voice at different multilateral fora relative to climate change and just transition. This initiative arose as a result of efforts by our esteemed founders, Senator Gladys Gonzalez of Argentina and Senator Jacques Wagner of Brazil, who unfortunately is unable to be here today given his new role within the Brazilian government. But in any event, these two, as well as other organizations such as the Open Society Foundation, joined efforts to establish this interparliamentarian cooperative initiative so that members of the region's parliaments were able to identify good legislative practices and pass legislation relevant to the just transition toward low-carbon economies. The OPCC was made official during the 26th Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, COP26. And actually, we have already begun planning our participation at the next COP. Since then, we have witnessed the quick growth of this platform. And today, in fact, we are joined by 26 parliamentarians from the various countries throughout the LAC region. So I would like to thank all the esteemed parliamentarians who have participated thus far. They have come from a variety of different legislators, and they have done the essential work that we truly need to combat climate change and to promote a just transition. Those taking part in the OPCC have also contributed enormously to the exchange of legislative information on the environment and to the exchange of good practices, enabling us to strengthen climate ambitions throughout the Latin American Caribbean region and also globally. So regionally or multilaterally or globally. So today we're actually launching the OPCC virtual platform and the legislative data monitor, and this is the outcome of nearly 1 year of activities. And today we are again launching this OPCC, which will be very useful for all. So the virtual platform and the data monitor constitute a tool that contributes to providing access to information in a transparent and fashion and freely as well, offering a new way to visualize and to view the legislative activities of the Latin American and Caribbean countries. I would like to thank and congratulate all of you for the results that we are launching today. This would not have been possible without the contribution of each of the parliamentarians present here today and the consultants as well as the technical teams who have provided support in terms of validating reports and gathering information, drafting documents, and a variety of different observatory-related activities. I would also like to thank the Open Society Foundation for their support as well. So on today's agenda, we have set aside two key moments for presenting the details and the features of the virtual platform and the data monitor. And we also have set aside time to hear from parliamentarians from the Caribbean and from Latin America. These individuals refer to the data available and the contributions of these instruments. These instruments will contribute to drafting new legislation throughout the region. So therefore, in order to open the event, I would like to introduce you to Senator Gladys Gonzalez of the Senate of the Argentine nation. She's co-founder of the OPCC, as I also mentioned. So, Senator, you have 5 minutes, and thank you for your presence and your efforts. Thank you very much, Carlos. Good afternoon to everyone. First of all, I would like to greet Santiago, Cecilia, and send greetings to Jacques as well. He has been such an inspiration for us early on and throughout this entire initiative. I'm sure some of my colleagues from Argentina, the Argentinian parliamentarians are present, and our colleagues from Colombia as well. These individuals have been working closely with us for more than 2 years now, since we came up with this fabulous idea, and since ECLAC gave us the space and the opportunity to work on this. ECLAC has been providing us support as well. I also wanted to thank the Open Society Foundation for supporting us as well, making this dream come true. So greetings to everyone, and my sincere appreciation to all of you as well. I'm very pleased to see that we were successful, we did it, and that we now have a tool available to us today. And in just a few minutes, we will be able to have a demo on see how the tool works and begin enjoying it. So everyone who has participated in this team effort everyone deserves a round of applause. Now, we are all advocates of legislation for the environment, for climate change, and we are parliamentarians. And so we have slowly but surely gotten to know each other, and this commitment that we have all taken on is part of our professional commitment, of course, and we are working closely with ECLAC We all believe in this agenda and the various spheres of action, and we have also worked together and separately on our own legislation. Now, this is a result of a variety of different needs. All of us, the legislative body members, we always work with comparative legislation from other regions throughout the world, primarily from our own region. We seek out good practices. We speak with our regional peers. We have networks. And that, we believe this platform will make all of that easier. Now we will have all of this information compiled, a single spot, and we will also have interpretations of the information, graphics, charts, and all of this will facilitate our daily activities. And of course, this takes a great deal of time. Analyzing the information and gathering the information is quite time consuming. So this is an extremely valuable tool for the legislative role and activity. And we believe this will allow us to improve our performance and our professional activities and boosting what we have been doing for years together. So this tool will make it possible for us to flow. And this is extremely satisfying to see that you have an idea and now it's a reality. So today, more than 1,600 laws will be posted on the platform, more than 200 draft bills, draft legislation as well. And this is the effort of all of us throughout the LAC region, the legislative team members, ECLAC team members, and we all face a challenge of going forward with this and making sure that we sustain this effort and apply improvements. Then we have yet another objective, and that is part of what we do as representatives of our people and as representatives of our region, and that is to make the information transparent. ECLAC has also been a pioneer in this regard, and for example, the event regarding the Escazú agreement, we held that event and we realized that this tool that we're addressing today will also make it possible for legislative bodies and citizens to learn more about that tool. So access to information is the third reason why we are here today. We need to measure what we do with regard to our climate related and environmental agendas, and these agendas are part of our political agendas, and this tool will allow us to monitor our activities, and the public at large will be able to keep an eye as well on what we are doing and to gain more information with regard to the political agenda. Often the political agenda or these matters of environment and climate at times are pushed to the bottom of the political agenda. So with this degree of professionalism and transparency, we also are upping our game. The bar has been lifted even higher, and we are challenged. But at the same time, this helps us in that it provides us with positive feedback. We receive positive feedback from the citizens for our legislative activity. So we will have legislation to sanction and to control and to ensure that the environmental and climate related agendas are public, as we have mentioned on so many previous occasions. So I, again, wanted to commend you for your efforts and to challenge you to continue growing with this platform and to encourage other legislative bodies throughout the region to join us. And again, enjoy the data monitor. It is a tool that will allow us to be increasingly more efficient and effective when facing the legislative challenge we all face. I think at the beginning, We may have thought this was very difficult, that seeking an agreement among all of us would have been very difficult, but we did it. And so we need to ensure that this is sustained over time and that we grow the number of members. So in that regard, I believe this is a tool that will enable us to strengthen our commitment to the Escazú agreement in our region and to encourage others to join the agreement as well and to place the climate change agenda on our own political agenda. So without further ado, warm greetings again, and let us continue working on this. I hope that this won't be the only time that I will take part in an event such as this one this year. Maybe I will see you at the COP. I do not know. This is my last year as a senator of Argentina after 6 years. So I am taking stock of what has been done over the last 6 years, and I truly hope that the agenda that we have been pushing forward will gain more impetus. So I hope to see you in the future. If not, I will be passing the legislative baton on to my colleagues, and Argentina will continue to hold the same commitment and will continue to be responsible for ensuring the success of this tool for the region. So greetings to all again, and I'm looking forward to the demo of the platform. Thank you, Carlos.
Graças, senadora, muito obrigado.
Thank you so much, Senator. You can rest assured that you will always be permanently invited, and we will always have you as a source of knowledge and guidance. And all your participation. We will continue to count with it for the success of the observatory. I would like to give the floor to the head of the Unit of Climate Change in ECLAC, my friend and colleague Santiago Lorenzo. You have the floor. Thank you so much, David. It is my privilege to be addressing you and the OPCC and the persons who are observing this launch. Greetings on the Open Society Foundation, who has supported this initiative. It is an honor to welcome you to the launch of the OPCC virtual platform, the Legislative Data Tracker. It is the result of an initiative that was built among the congressmen who have been working in this parliamentary group for just transition. As the senator said, it is like a relay race that we've been doing that led to the progress of this observatory that was launched in December 2021 in Glasgow at the COP26 in the UK. And the next COP also issued a statement as to the role in just transition with the reduction of carbon and climate funding, which has been expanding geographically and also in depth in terms of its work. It is important to highlight that we all agree that we need to act urgency with climate change. And along those lines, it is not particularly sensitive to say that congressmen will work urgently. It is the executive, really. Yet we have seen recently that once an executive says that they will act rapidly, and some do in front of climate change, there are doubts that arise because of political reasons, and sometimes they move a step back. So not only urgency is important, but also permanence. That's the role of a congressman is important, to be able to legislate not only on climate change, but also on biodiversity, the environment, and social and economic development based on coexistence with nature is fundamental. And we pass from what lasts long to managing state policies. State policies reflect a common base in political diversity. That's another important characteristic of the observatory, that all the parties are welcome, all visions are welcome vis-a-vis the greatest possible challenge that society is facing today, which is climate change. Thus, the depth of a congressional work, and as the senator just said, with this type of platform, not only it's in-depth work that's presented to the public, but it helps that the works from the different parliaments be more collaborative, that there can be consultations. Whenever there is interest in one, you can get in touch with the legislators and the teams of the country that may have issues that you're interested in replicating in your own draft bills. So that type of work can be done with this type of tool, and that's what we're aiming for with this initiative. This is what we have been pursuing, and it makes us more effective and efficient in the design of the legal frameworks in which to act. So with this, we go back to the urgency. This permits parliaments to contribute with urgency to see to this problem. We said permanence matters, and yes, but also knowing that these are problems that require urgency. Climate change does, to get urgency from the executive and to have radical measures from the very start. But acting with a consistent legal framework can be done faster, and with this platform, we can also contribute to the urgency from the congressional side. And in this platform, we will concentrate much knowledge and the possibility for this mutual support. I would also like to refer, as the senator did, to the link with the Escazú agreement. It's not a platform simply dedicated to parliamentary teams. It's open to the public. And so everyone who is interested can go in and treasure what exists and demand what's needed. So it's linked to the Escazú agreement, and the tool permits to get a much better informed participation from civil society and all the stakeholders. That's why we're so pleased. So today, with the support that we have from the Open Society Foundations, OPCC has 26 congressmen and women from 15 countries of Latin America: Argentina, Brazil, Bolivia, Barbados, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Curacao, Grenada, Guatemala, Turks and Caicos, British Virgin Islands, Montserrat. And we're open to all sorts of participation. And with it, today, with the support of these congressmen and women, we can launch this virtual platform of OPCC, the legislative data tracker, that, as the Senator Gladys said, has data with more than 1,100 draft bills. So we are certain that the platform and the tracker are a tool that contributes to a transparent and free access to information. It also offers a way to channel legislative activities of the countries of Latin America and the Caribbean from an external perspective. And for us, for ECLAC, it is an honor to host this virtual platform. Permits generating space for the exchange among peers. As I said, give the region a voice in front of global problems, because even other geographies can look at what's being developed in this region and identify common actions and joint actions and give visibility to good policies and practices in our countries. With this, I don't want to take any more time. So once again, thank the congressmen and women who have permitted CLAC provide support in this fundamental initiative to prepare the adequate framework for climate action, and to tell you that we're very pleased of where we are right now, and we're happy to continue to support with the cooperation of the Open Society. And as Senator Gladys Gonzalez said, there's many teams, not just the congressmen and women, but their teams are also working. And we believe it is possible that more institutions and individuals may contribute to this, that we believe has very large potential repercussions. Thank you, and with the satisfaction of this launch, thank you, and goodbye. Thank you so much, Santiago. I believe that you have highlighted some important topics relating to the use of the platform and the citizens, and the way in which we could monitor the activities and even the externalities of the platform, how they can be identified in the case of Escazú. Now, I would like to offer the floor to someone who made it possible for all of us to be here with the Open Society Foundation, working in the issue of climate justice. Tiago, you have 5 minutes. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank CEPAL because this project is one of the most wonderful things that we have been able to do as Open Society. It has allowed us to carry out public policies to a regional level, so that I would like to congratulate you all and thank Senator Gladys, because it must not be easy to focus on international policies at a regional level when the day-to-day of our own internal domestic policies lead us to think of our own country and not necessarily in regional integration. That is why I wanted to congratulate you for the continuity of your efforts. I would like to introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. I'm Iago. I coordinate the Forum on Climate Justice for Open Society in Latin America and the Caribbean. Open Society is the largest philanthropic organization in the world, working on different issues of justice, climate justice, economic justice, the strengthening of democracy, among others. Our project portfolio includes the support to the observatory, and in it, I work on the support of multilateral organizations, of civil society, and partnerships with governments who understand that we need to support the persons to solve climate issues. Persons who have been historically excluded from this debate on the transition and climate change. I'm specifically speaking of youth, such as myself, or women, persons of African descent in a region who are excluded from the decision-making spaces. When we talk about transition, and for that reason I like the observatory, we have several perspectives of transition. There is something that brings everyone together in this group, which is a transition that can deal with the demands of our population, generating employment, massive employment for our population, and that may also reduce the tremendous inequalities that affect our populations in our countries and some specific communities. It is also a transition that understands the role of the state as an essential instrument for the promotion of this change. There are several members of the House and the Senate in this meeting who are currently in New York participating on the Climate Week, which is held in parallel to the General Assembly of the UN. And as myself, the United States with the new laws and the European agreement, this is an evidence that the state is a fundamental agent for the promotion of change in dialogue with civil society and stimulating the participation of the private sector in this just transition that we so desire. Third, we have to understand that our region, Latin America and the Caribbean, is the one that counts with one of the greatest biodiversities of the world, and also forest area and critical issues for this transition. This is critical in this discussion because this sets upon our shoulders a great responsibility and gives us also a great opportunity for the use of energy, the use of the land, and the economic transition in our region, and that it not be based only on fossil fuels. That's a very important point that we need to take into account. I would like to congratulate CLAC and all the congressmen and women involved in this project. I believe that the platform will provide a unique opportunity for the exchange of good practices in the region. And I believe that it will be of help not just to the legislature, but to the executives of the region. I specifically mentioned Brazil, Colombia, and Chile, because I know, because I work with these countries, that these are countries that are advancing in their plans of socio-ecological transition simultaneously. And I am certain that these regional discussions will give us the opportunity to understand it so that we may think of an economic model and taxonomies and classifications that may set a full dialogue with a region. Thank you very much, Carlos, and everyone in the team. It is always a great pleasure to be with you.
Como profissional e também da Open Society, e por estar sempre nos colocando desafios.
Thank you, Iago. I would like to thank you for your participation. I would also like to thank Open Society. We have also heard that you have provided us with some challenges. I would like to thank you for that as well. Let us begin with the first panel discussion today. I think this is a good segue for this discussion. And the question is, what is the importance of promoting transparency and access to environmental laws in Latin America and the Caribbean? We will hear from two parliamentarians on this discussion panel. Parliamentary Secretary Veronica Dorset and Katia Cambronero. They will refer to the importance of promoting transparency and access to environmental law and bills. So rather, correct myself, I'd like to give the floor to Nito Dato, who is the president of the Federal Chamber of Brazil and member of the Environment Commission. So thank you for your participation. I know you had to change your schedule to be here today and join this panel discussion. So we would like to thank you for that. And we are waiting for your comments, recommendations, etc. Thank you. Good afternoon. I would like to thank Carlos Musi and others and the entire ECLAC team with a great deal of affection and appreciation. I am happy to be here and would like to thank Senator Gladys Gonzalez and send my greetings to Jacques Wagner, who is also unable to be here. Thank you to both of them for this idea and for mobilizing such a large number of participants behind this initiative. An initiative that allows the parliaments of Latin America and the Caribbean to join efforts. I would also like to greet Iago Airon from Open Society. I truly admire the Open Society Foundation for their history and for their efforts to find solutions that include facing the major global issues such as climate change. Allow me to greet Deputy Katia Cambronero as well, and all the parliamentarians present here today at this launch. Briefly, well, first, let me introduce myself. I am Deputy Nilto Tato from Sao Paulo. I coordinate the Environmental Parliamentarian Front involving Congress, representatives of Congress, and the lower chamber from Brazil. And we know that we are facing an unprecedented issue that is climate change here on our planet, and it's jeopardizing the life of our planet and everything on it. And in recent decades, rather over the last 200 years, we have seen a loss of biodiversity, again, unprecedented in the history of humanity. This constitutes a crisis that is related to how we have organized our goods and services production structure, humans, that is, how we've organized these efforts over the last 250 years. We have, again, jeopardized the planet, and we have worsened, exacerbated inequalities on our planet. In terms of social interactions and within countries, some countries have secured development at the cost of social internal inequalities, and we have also seen inequality between countries, so within and between countries. And this challenge is something we must tackle alongside the challenges posed by climate change and international relations and the various debates in the most relevant global fora where we discuss global issues and in our own countries as well. Today, we have witnessed a variety of different climate-related events. For example, in Brazil, we have seen flooding in southern Brazil in the state of Rio Grande. Individuals have perished as well, and we are seeing these events worldwide, climate events, hurricanes, drought, etc. These have an impact on the most vulnerable groups, specifically. In Latin America and the Caribbean, we have seen that, and we know that there are groups of individuals and communities that have suffered a great deal and continue to do so as a result of these climate-related events. In Latin America and the Caribbean, especially in most of the countries, we have seen that there is a great deal of inequality. Afro-descendants, indigenous communities specifically have been marginalized from the country's development processes. Allow me to underscore the importance of sharing knowledge when it comes to drafting public policies. It's crucial to share experiences and to discuss these, discuss what is going on in the other countries and to talk together because our realities, our contexts are similar. And we all face this common challenge of addressing inequalities. And as mentioned earlier, this region is, and we must understand it, as a place where during this new century and when facing new ways to producing goods and services and new ways to reduce greenhouse gases and to recovering deteriorated and degraded areas, while at the same time taking advantage of these opportunities to add value with regard to biodiversity and natural resources, we have seen that that is what we need to do. And we also need to have dialogue with regard to ethnic diversity in our region. That's one of the reasons why this platform is so important, because it's an opportunity for us to have these discussions. We should also have what we call an opportunity of an agenda of opportunities for all. And in part, that's the goal of this platform, to find solutions to the climate crisis. And the world at large is searching for ways to address inequalities in the climate crisis. In that regard, our region has a great deal to contribute because we have a wealth of diversity in our region. Again, allow me to greet all of the members of this platform and appeal to you to join our efforts, because we have a mission that we must take on, and we have tasks and duties that we need to tackle. We must not make the same mistakes of the past, mistakes related to exclusion, and task the developed countries with taking charge of their responsibilities, so that the developing nations also do not do the same that the developed nations did, which in the end has jeopardized life on our planet as we know it. In short, evaluating and monitoring our activities, sharing experiences, everything that we have available on this platform, all of these components are essential. Let's talk about the Escazú Agreement. We are trying to pass this within the Brazilian Congress, and all of this is related to what we want this platform to be and to do for us. Leadership by Gladys and Jacques on the OPCC, we hope, will lead to the results that we would like to see for Latin America, the Caribbean, and the entire international community. So thank you again. I am sure that we will see each other soon, the various fora related to these opportunities and activities. So thank you again. Thank you, Deputy Nilto. Thank you so much for those remarks and for your efforts, for your presence as well. And your remarks have been quite relevant. Allow me to now give the floor to Deputy Katia Cambronero from the Costa Rican legislator and a member of the OPCC. Greetings, thank you. It's a pleasure to greet you all here from Costa Rica. I hope you are doing well. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I think the news we have received today is magnificent. I would like to commend the OPCC for this initiative and commend Senator Gonzalez for heading up this initiative. Thank you to ECLAC as well for their support, and thank you to the Open Society Foundation for supporting this initiative, which is so crucial to all of us. When you take a step back and assess what is going on in the world, where hundreds of environmental activists have died this year, we see that transparency becomes a crucial matter, and not just because clearly the vulnerable groups suffer more. And by the way, we know that many of these groups are constituted by women and individuals living in a rural setting throughout Latin America and the Caribbean. So it's quite evident that legislation and what we can do within our parliamentary bodies are critical activities. And we know that the environment and climate change issues have become a priority in our parliaments. One of the major issues we have witnessed in Latin America is denial of the impact related to the impact of climate change, and this is leading to serious issues with regard to implementing public policies. And that is where we, as senators or deputies, need to focus on laws and bills that will remain in place over time and that will support the climate agenda of all of our countries. Clearly, the platform is a very valuable resource for all of us. It is a resource that provides us with access to good practices that have been in place and have been implemented by some countries. And it's also an opportunity for many of us, those of us concerned with the climate issues, to reach agreements and to have discussions with our peers throughout the entire region. So again, allow me to extend my appreciation to all of you for making this opportunity available, and thank you for the opportunity to allow all of us to raise our voice and to be heard and to propose alternatives that will allow us to truly mitigate climate change and allow the most vulnerable groups in our communities to suffer less. And for us, it is critical that everything that we can do with regard to protecting our citizens today and protecting our oceans is crucial. Our oceans are jeopardized today, and we know that this is a key component on the LAC agenda. And also, let's make sure that we do not see an oversizing of payment for our ecosystem services. And we will share on this platform all these success stories, but also those that have not been so successful, but that from which we can learn. So again, thank you for this opportunity. This platform constitutes a wealth of information, and clearly it is an initiative that will allow us to better position the environmental agenda into our parliaments quite significantly, and to ensure that this is a priority. So thank you, and greetings to everyone.
Es muy importante tener la participación de Costa Rica aquí y te agradezco mucho.
Thank you. It is so important to have the participation of Costa Rica. You express so well not only the medium and long-term discussion, but the things that are very short-term, that we're facing immediate crisis. And we must also think of how to propose actions to support these persons and these situations of crisis that we're experiencing in several of our countries with the climate crisis. Thank you very much, Deputy.
Could you identify yourself so we can know where you're coming from or giving or hearing us? So please do that. Thank you. Bem, agora vamos para o momento especial, principal do nosso evento hoje. Eu tenho a grande honra de passar a palavra para o Walter
It is
Schaller,
my honor to give the floor to Walter Schaller, health of the Santa Cruz Library in ECLAC. And both him and his team have been fundamental to make possible this platform. I would like to offer the floor, as a Brazilian singer called Roberto Carlos would say, to my great friend Walter Schaller. Walter, you have the floor. Thank you so much, Carlos. Good afternoon. Greeting to the representatives of the Open Society Foundation, to the congressmen and women of the countries from Latin America and the Caribbean, colleagues from ECLAC, and all the guests and the participants to this event. I would like to start by thanking ECLAC's office in Brasilia, Carlos, Camila, colleagues, and the Open Society Foundations, the trust deposited in the ECLAC teams for the building of the web platform, of the platform for climate change and just transition of Latin America and the Caribbean. In representation of the Hernan Santa Cruz Library and the unit of web services, it is an honor for us to participate in that event of the launch of the virtual platform and the legislative data tracker for Latin America and the Caribbean. The objective of the observatory is to promote the access to legislative and environmental information within the region through active visualizations and panels of action in the dashboard format. It has been a long and challenging path that has been tread to reach what we will now see today. After the initial collection of the legislative instruments done by the congressional advisors of the countries of the region, the ECLAC team, including the Santa Cruz Library, the Unit of Web Services, and the Statistics Division, jointly with the different consultants, built a database which is standardized with 1,100 environmental laws, 331 draft bills on environmental issues, and the framework legislation on climate change of 5 countries, gathering today more than 1,500 legislative instruments for 17 countries. This database resulted in what we have called legislative data tracker. This tool will permit monitoring real-time the legislative activity of the countries with interactive and comparable plots on topics and economic sectors that are affected by the legislative instruments, among other key indicators. There are many portals with legislative information, even with climate legislation. So what is the innovative aspect of this legislative data tracker hosted in the OPCC? Apart from having environmental legislation and framework legislation for climate change, we have included the draft bills that are currently being processed in the parliaments of the region of the last years. This is crucial information to get to know and to understand the status of the climate environmental discussion in the region and acknowledge what are the pending issues in environmental issues, and also can allow us to transmit in an agile way innovative ideas from country to country and from territory to territory. Another innovative element is the identification of the economic sectors that are most affected by the legislation and the draft bills in the region. From the analysis of those data, we can see that most of the environmental legislative instruments do not have an express impact on specific areas, because it shows us what are the open opportunities for legislation in economic sectors and to guarantee the transition to low carbon economies. Another innovative element is it's possible to easily identify those countries who have a framework law for climate change, including a detail of the different pillars and components based on which they legislate, such as goals of mitigation and carbon neutrality, economic and financial aspects, institutionality of climate policy, amongst other aspects. The tracker also dedicates a section for the individual analysis of the countries and topics approached by the legislative instruments, and will have 2 search engines that will facilitate the search on different publications, documents, and video, and legislative resources with direct access to reading and downloading those texts, available in the institutional sites of each country as an interface for the comparison of data among countries in a dashboard. The methodology of the observatory shows clarifications of the information contained in the database. The countries, including the report, a detailed explanation of each type of data, as well as information referring to the process of data collection and the differences between Latin America and the Caribbean. The glossary provides a basis for common understanding of the terms of relevance which are present at the OPCC platform to guarantee a correct interpretation and usage of the legislative data available in the legislative data tracker. We would like to highlight that the platform would not be possible without the cooperation of the congressmen and women and their advisory teams. They are and will continue to be the protagonists of this initiative. We invite you to continue to contribute by adding new legislative instruments to the platform. We also invite other countries to join this initiative in order to enrich that source of information, provide sustainability in time, and expand the situation with the total visibility of the environmental legislative activity in Latin America and the Caribbean. And with those words, I will officially show you the parliamentary platform, which is now available in opcc.cepal.org. I will first show you a video that presents the platform.
El Observatorio Parlamentario de Cambio Climático y Transición Justa, OPCC, es una iniciativa realizada conjuntamente por líderes parlamentarios de diversos países de América Latina y el Caribe. Su objetivo principal es constituir una herramienta de información compartida sobre el estado de situación de la legislación y el tratamiento parlamentario ambiental en la región. Con la colaboración de la CEPAL y el apoyo de la Open Society Foundations, el observatorio espera contribuir al fortalecimiento de la cooperación interparlamentaria para que los responsables de la formulación de políticas puedan revisar y aprobar la legislación pertinente a la transición justa a economías sostenibles y bajas en carbono. Asimismo, la plataforma OPCC, disponible en español, inglés y portugués, busca promover el intercambio de experiencias y propuestas legislativas, el seguimiento y análisis de discusiones legislativas y a crear un espacio de diálogo político y social. En noviembre de 2021, en el marco de la 26ª Conferencia de las Partes en la Convención Marco de las Naciones Unidas sobre el Cambio Climático, COP26, 15 parlamentarios y parlamentarias de 12 países de la región, reunidos en Glasgow, firmaron una declaración conjunta que anunciaba la iniciativa de creación del OPCC. En noviembre de 2022, en el marco de la COP27 realizada en Egipto, parlamentarios y parlamentarios de la región firman una segunda declaración conjunta que comunica, entre otras iniciativas, el comienzo del proceso de desarrollo de la plataforma del observatorio, que concluye en el segundo semestre de 2023. Esta plataforma reúne diversos recursos de información desarrollados por el OPCC, tales como estudios de casos de buenas prácticas legislativas en materia de transición justa, Policy Brief, con análisis comparativos de la legislación respecto a temas estratégicos. El principal recurso de información del OPCC radica en el desarrollo de un monitor legislativo, que incluye visualizaciones innovadoras sobre la actividad legislativa de los países, presentando indicadores claves, gráficos interactivos, paneles de acción y datos integrados y comparables a partir de una base de datos construida con la participación activa y protagónica de los representantes parlamentarios partícipes del OPCC y sus equipos asesores, quienes contribuyen con la provisión de información legislativa actualizada en sus países. El monitor legislativo del OPCC ya contiene información de 17 países que contribuyen con datos en 3 áreas, llegando hoy a casi 1.500 instrumentos sobre legislación ambiental sancionada por el Poder Legislativo, legislación marco de cambio climático sancionada por el Poder Legislativo y proyectos de ley en trámite en las comisiones específicas en materia ambiental de los parlamentos. A través del panorama general del monitor se puede observar un resumen de la situación legislativa de la región, con indicadores claves, mapas interactivos e indicadores destacados para las 3 áreas legislativas. Cada área del monitor contiene un conjunto de indicadores claves, mapas y gráficos actualizados en tiempo real que permiten visualizar temporalmente la evolución en las leyes ambientales vigentes, así como la cantidad de iniciativas parlamentarias en tratamiento legislativo por país, por temas y su impacto en diversos sectores económicos. Además, se pueden identificar fácilmente los países que cuentan con ley marco de cambio climático, incluyendo un detalle pormenorizado de los ejes y componentes sobre los que legisla, tales como metas de mitigación de emisiones y carbono neutralidad, aspectos económicos y financieros, institucionalidad de la política climática, instrumentos del Acuerdo de París. El monitor legislativo permite también visualizar el listado de leyes y otros instrumentos legislativos, con acceso a la lectura en línea en los sitios institucionales de cada país y o a su descarga en PDF. Adicionalmente, se podrá acceder a perfiles nacionales de los países que contribuyen con información legislativa al monitor, así como explorar las diversas temáticas abordadas por los instrumentos legislativos disponibles en esta plataforma. La plataforma cuenta a su vez con una interfaz para comparar datos mediante la selección de filtros que dibujan diversas visualizaciones. Un buscador permite encontrar rápidamente leyes y proyectos de ley mediante palabras o filtros con acceso directo a su lectura o descarga. Confiamos en que esta plataforma de información de libre acceso resulte útil y clave para el fortalecimiento de la democracia ambiental e incentive la adhesión de más países de la región a contribuir con información legislativa pertinente para los poderes públicos de los estados, la academia, organismos internacionales, empresas, la sociedad civil y otros sectores sociales de la región y del mundo.
Bueno, el observatorio ya está
The
disponible.
observatory is already available.
Si me permite, lo voy a mostrar en vivo.
If you will allow me, I will provide you with a live demo.
Entonces acá el URL del
Here you
observatorio
can see the website, the URL, opcc.cepal.org, and available in 3 languages, and you can choose your language.
y con eso, Carlos,
And with that, Carlos,
si quieres comentar algo.
the floor is yours. Would you care to make any remarks? First, I would like to thank the entire team at ECLAC Statistics Division and the library for these efforts. Of course, we have the credits at the end of every movie, and the credits, a list of those individuals who have contributed to the work of art or the event. Sometimes the credits are shown at the beginning of the movie, so allow me to mention everyone: Walter, Claudia Vilches, Luke Asprey, Jennifer Parra from the unit, colleagues, consultants, as well as the consultants from the observatory, Gaston Gonsini, who has made a major contribution throughout the entire process, Daniela Andrade, who also provided data, and Juliana de Marais, who is officially the liaison consultant and the outreach consultant. Without the work by Juliana, we would not be here today at this event. Moreover, I would like to thank another major partner in all of this. I'm referring to the team members at ECLAC's Caribbean office in Port of Spain, Diane Corliss and her leadership, Artie Dubry, Vera Fraser, Jonatas de Paula Esther, everyone who has made it possible for us to reach the Caribbean. These colleagues are extremely important. And finally, but last but not least, the members of my team: Camila, Marcia, Robson, Decio, Gabriela. You have all worked very hard to make this observatory a success. So again, as in all the blockbusters and In the theater, I have done my job and given credit and shown the credits, giving credit to everyone who has made this a success. So again, Walter, thank you. And please thank your team members on my behalf. As would also like to thank my colleagues and friends at ECLAC's Brazil office. Let us begin the second part of our event. Which is an opportunity for us to hear from various members of this platform and the monitor, members who have been able to explore the various features and findings of the legislative data tracker. We will hear from 4 parliamentarians. I will begin by giving the floor to Representative Juan Carlos Losada, a very active participant and contributor to the OPCC. He is a representative of the Chamber of Colombia. You have the floor, Representative Losada. You have 10 minutes. Thank you, Carlos, for the introduction. Thank you to everyone for joining us here. I would like to extend enormous appreciation to ECLAC, Carlos, Santiago, Iago, and everyone else who has made this launch possible. We know that this platform will be extremely helpful for our legislative activities, and also it is a significant effort to foster transparency and will be very helpful for citizens wishing to following up on the legislative activities in each of the countries throughout our region. Special greetings to Senator Gladys Gonzalez. I was very sad to hear that this is one of the last opportunities during which you will be participating in the OPCC. You and Jacques have played a key role in all of this, and we now must rise to the occasion and continue carrying all of this forward without you. I'm sure I can speak on behalf of everyone and say that we love you dearly and we truly appreciate you, and you are a fabulous leader and have been recognized as such. We will miss you deeply, and you deserve a loud round of applause from all of us. And you know that on a personal note, I admire you significantly. So this is the nature of what we do. We're here today, tomorrow we might not be. That's the way politics are. But for those of us who will remain, I can say that I will do everything possible to make this project a success, and I will put all of my energy in this. And Mr. Musi, you have a standing slot available within this organization. So again, thank you, and I am available. I will be at I'm at New York Climate Week, and greetings to all of the LAC members of the OPCC. We have had the opportunity to review the information on the platform, Carlos and Santiago, and we have been able to draw some conclusions already, conclusions that will be crucial for the legislative activities that we will be carrying out going forward in the future based on this information. So hi again, Wendell. It's nice to see you again in the Caribbean. This platform, regarding my findings, the platform provides us with a very interesting view of the various initiatives that have been adopted throughout the region. The platform showcases all of the bills that and draft projects, draft legislation that have been presented to the various legislative bodies, how many have been adopted and passed, and the timeline, the time it's taken for many of these to be passed and enacted. Argentina, for example, will be adopting 7 environmental laws, Colombia, a few others as well. And so the platform allows us to view the various initiatives underway and that have already been carried out in the past. For example, the Chilean law was one of the most difficult laws. 800 days it was under discussion. And there are other initiatives that have only taken 20 days to be pushed through the legislative body. On average, an environmental bill in our countries takes 290 days, again, on average, 290 days to be adopted and passed. So legislators will benefit from this information displayed, and we need to conduct a very in-depth study on the best possible strategy to adopt these laws, and if they are either constitutional reforms or laws that provide access to fundamental rights, such as Colombia, for example, we are working through the statutory legislation, or again, you may have standard ordinary common law. And so that information is crucial to the parliamentary strategy, and the environmental laws that have implications for the tax authority and that have implications for the executive and the states take practically twice as long to be passed. In other words, those laws that will have an impact on the tax authority are twice as complicated, or one could say will take twice as long as the other ones. That's why it is crucial for the parliamentarians to bear this in mind when we present draft legislation. And we know that if this legislation will involve state resources, the legislation will take longer to be passed. And it's important to involve the executive as well to ensure that there's harmonious passing, one could say. Now, Colombia, for example, it's absolutely impossible to pass an environmental law involving state resources if it's not endorsed by the state and government. And so this platform provides us with that key information with regard to the average time it takes an environmental law to be passed, as well as other key variables. Therefore, in that regard, this platform is an extraordinary tool for legislative strategy and planning. Senator Cecilia and Gladys, from the very beginning, were looking for there to be a collaborative effort with regard to the text posted and the ideas. They wanted to hear the best ideas from the various countries in order to have homogeneous legislation throughout the region, or synchronized, one could say. And now the platform provides us with information that will allow us to boost our parliamentary strategy, which of course is critical for passing laws in our Congresses. That's just what I wanted to say with regard to some of the findings. And I will give the floor back to you, Carlos, because I know there are 3 other individuals who will be taking the floor. And again, I am in New York City for the Environment Week, and there are many different events taking place in New York, as well as the General Assembly. We have taken part in many different parliamentarian events with other parliaments parliamentarians from around the world and working on the just transition. We're working closely with our governments here in New York. So greetings to all of you, and hopefully this platform will serve the highest purpose for all of us, and in each of our countries contribute to improving the well-being of our planet. So thank you and greetings to all.
Representante Juan Carlos Lozada, uno de los productos previstos en el OPCC.
One of the products in the OPCC are the policy briefs. If I can take an initiative that the representatives, if you could make a summary of the most important points for the OPCC of that climate week and your evaluation on possible paths towards COP, it would be very interesting, and we could publish it within OPCC and in the platform. You can do it in Spanish, and then we arrange that. But it would be very interesting, and thank you for everything. Always switch from Spanish to Portuguese, some Portuguese to Spanish. But I would like to say that we have a special fairy godmother at OPCC. Cecilia has always been with us. She presents the major orientations and different indications of the topics. Cecilia has made a major contribution for OPCC and for us in terms of our efforts in Bolivia and throughout the region, and now, of course, from New York. We give the floor to Cecilia. She has 10 minutes. Of course, you have to think that you're one of the godmothers of OPCC, or one of the several godmothers of OPCC. She has done much work with other parliamentarians. Carlos, good afternoon. I want to greet all the colleagues from the region and my greetings to the whole ECLAC team, the Open Society team, and I would like to especially mention the team of the advisors who have worked in a remarkable way, adding to their own work with great enthusiasm and effectiveness. Thanks so much to the consultants as well, that we have been able to get their support, and thanks to the funding from ECLAC and Open Society. I want to greet each one of you and thank a special greeting, and I especially endorse the lovely words expressed by Juan Carlos from Colombia as refers to Gladys. And I'm delighted to take the title that Carlos gave me, the godmother. I came here when it was already working, thanks to the initiative of Jack Wagner, who is not here, but he still is in a way, just as Gladys, who is here and will continue to be present. We will see how we will walk ahead in this path of on and off, which is the path of politics, particularly representative politics. And congratulations, they can see now that their idea has very clear, concrete results. It's an achievement, a true success, and I want to congratulate them for the vision and their managerial capacity. And of course, it would have not been a reality without the ECLAC and the Open Society's foundations, but the kickoff, the initiative, the vision, that came first. And thank you so much to both senators, particularly Gladys, who's here, and whom I've been so pleased to meet personally. And I hope that we can meet again, and with a big hug, we may continue to work together. As a representative from Costa Rica said, women are a fundamental part of this mobilization for the environment. That's clear, and here we are. So, I understand I have a presentation that has been distributed to you. I wanted to talk about a very specific topic. Just a few slides, don't be scared. And then a couple closing remarks. It is interesting. I'll go straight into the topic. Amazonia is in a region, even though it does not form part of each one of the countries gathered here together. Just as a European can feel that the Amazon is relevant, much more so than someone from Rio de la Plata may feel that this affects us all, or from the Caribbean as well. There should be no type of a border. We all need to work together. And this fundamental region for climate resilience in the 21st century can also be seen from our platform, this wonderful platform that we presented today, which is so very useful. So what we are doing today, as an example, an Amazon view, so that we may understand the versatility and flexibility of this wonderful tool that has been created with the support of the persons and institutions already mentioned. An analysis of the platform shows us that we have 42 laws referring to the environment and climate change in the Amazon region, or that somehow affect it. 3 countries specifically have legislated in this topic. 3 countries of those included here, which are Colombia, as you can see. They have many laws. Bolivia, 14 laws, and Brazil has 9. As to the moment in which they were approved and making an analysis, as Juan Carlos Lozada did, it's interesting to see that before the year 2000, only 30% of these laws were presented, and maybe after the year 2000, maybe we could have a more recent cut point. We see how they were accelerated. It's important we see there is a degree of need to approve laws, and this shows how pertinent this platform that we're presenting here is. Next slide, please. This is an example of what we can obtain from the platform. This is a breakdown showing the country, the number of the law that tells us much about the content, no, the number which is useful for searching it, and the title which gives us basic information.
Voy a mover de ese ámbito por el momento. Por ejemplo, hablando de forestación y reforestación o protección de territorios indígenas y parques nacionales, una ley de consulta específica para el Ixiboro Secure, una ley de creación del Instituto de Investigaciones Científicas de la Amazonía Boliviana para el desarrollo sostenible, una ley de protección y desarrollo.
Laws, law for the protection of the comprehensive development of the national parties, what is secure, but that were very important in 2011. I have to say here, as a qualitative aspect, that the amount of laws is not necessarily telling much about the quality, and those are the steps that we'll be able to give thanks to the fact that we have the data. In this case, for example, this institute has been approved but not yet created. And many of these laws up to the TIPNIs have a long story that needs to be analyzed. So we need to make this initial additional analysis. I continue now talking about Brazil and one of the very important laws, talking about tax measures applicable to the grants in kind received by public institutions controlled by the Union and destined for prevention, monitoring, and fight against deforestation and promote conservation and sustainable use of Brazilian forests. We have the case of Colombia. Through the law, they created the Forestry Financial Fund, which establishes environmental surcharge on the tolls of the highways close to the conservation areas and Ramsar sites or important wetlands, as defined in the law 357. of 1997 and also biosphere reserves. It's important in a slide that I will not read shows that part of these resources go to subnational governments. This is a very interesting mechanism for us. A law that approves the agreement on Amazon cooperation signed in Brazil in 1978 by Colombia, and finally a law that approves the amendment protocol of the Treaty for Amazon Cooperation of 1998. So this is a more detailed perspective that I insist opens up, invites us to have a more qualitative analysis. What instruments and policies have we identified to be linked to the Amazons? Here you have a brief synthesis done precisely by the team behind all this work that we have the privilege of presenting. Prioritization of the protection of Amazon areas, creation of protected areas, mechanism of participation of the First Peoples, investment in science and research in the Amazon, mechanisms of payment for environmental services, green taxes, access to credit and funding, international cooperation. These are the instruments and policies that have been identified through the analysis of the regulation. So what legislative mechanisms have been used for the Amazon? Some pillars relate to those previously mentioned and repeated. Creation of protected areas on the Amazon. Once again, the execution of economic and financial mechanisms promoting Amazonic conservation, design of mechanism of citizens' participation and consultation, and the formalization of regional international cooperation in the Amazon. That's a sample of something that we've been talking about here that has specific importance, even though, of course, you can make this for other ecosystems. That's not the point. The point that this is barely an example of how, now we're close to an idea that I believe is fundamental, and it is an idea that all the persons who preceded us have placed emphasis. Well, the capacity to cooperate regionally in a region that has a large amount of biodiversity still. And it will be particularly affected, and is already being affected by climate change, which is more vulnerable than many other regions, probably not the most vulnerable, but we are amongst the most vulnerable regions. So the need for the parliamentarians who are part of the government, where plurality of voices in a country is large, the importance of articulation, not only within the country, which is fundamental, but to be able to share and collaborate so that the countries may use the experience of other places. That's a mechanism that makes things faster because I can know who to turn to, and it saves sometimes weeks of research. So cooperation is fundamental. The agreement, the Escazú agreement and its contribution has been mentioned, and how important it is to enforce it. And with this, I will be closing. I'd like to highlight the urgency that we're facing. We are in a climate emergency, and so time here is very important. And this type of tool helps us to save time and to move qualitatively on harnessing the experience and the errors of others, and of course, on the good points. So this is a very valuable experience, and I'm grateful to have been part of it. And once again, I'd like to acknowledge the leadership of Senator Gladys Gonzalez, Senator Jacques Wagner, and the critical support from ECLAC and Open Society Foundations, and I insist of our advisors and consultants. Colleagues, I believe that we can congratulate each other. This is, as any achievement, a step ahead, but we have a very valuable tool. So let's congratulate ourselves and let's go on, because there's still much to do and it has to be done fast. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Senator Cecilia. You are always a reference for us. And thank you so much for presenting this work. I believe that one of the goals of OPCC is that the discussion about the Amazon be done at the legislative body of the countries and not in other regions who pretend to legislate how to use it, what needs to be done, and what are the standards that we need to apply to the region. If we don't take the initiative ourselves, they will believe that they have the right, and you show so well how it is possible to do it. And if I may, a very Brazilian expression is, we ask for your blessing, and we will always be next to you, working with you. One of the points in the path to OPCC is the Santiago Summit. That moment, we managed to gather parliamentarians who have been talking. They could get to meet apart from our virtual meetings.
Representative who really put all of his efforts into bringing the attention to the OPCC.
And one of our representatives who has brought much attention to the OPCC and which has kept us together in this effort. As a true leader, parliamentary leader, is Mr. Wendell Mercelina Jr., who through his voice and participation in the Santiago Summit had great importance in creating a feeling of union of all those who participate in the OPCC. Y esperamos que usted nos ayude a aportar la presencia, una buena presencia de parlamentarios del Caribe. Eso sería tremendamente bien acogido y usted puede usarlo en nuestra web o la web parlamentaria. Así que el señor Marcelino de la Asamblea del Parlamento de Curazao, tiene usted la palabra por 10 minutos.
Hearing me very well. It's very thrilled to be here today because to share, as I said, we are all environmental champions, knowing that we are only living on one earth and doing the best we can, gathering with all of you together to launch the Parliamentary Observatory on Climate Change and Dust Transitioning in Latin America and the Caribbean, the virtual platform, but also the legislative data tracker. I cannot say all but thank you to ECLAC and the Open Society Foundation for the hard work you guys are doing, the combining of all efforts of all of us as representative, the voices of our communities by being the legislative power. But if it wasn't because of you, we are not here. And also I want to send my good greetings to Sir Jacques Wagner, but also to Gladys Gonzalez. They are always and will always be reminded, because with their fire and with their power, we're going to keep on. And I truly wish her the best within her political career as well. This platform and data tracker are, for us, critical tools in our effective collective efforts to address the urgent challenges of climate change and also to ensure a just and sustainable transitioning for our region. So they provide us with the necessary resources to monitor and to evaluate our legislative actions and to make informed decisions to shape a better future, but also for our people and our planet, as I've been saying. So today, I've gotten the opportunity to present the disaster management and mitigation, and also to highlight the relevance in territories, and particularly those that are threatened by climate change. So it's an honor for me to have this platform and to share the insights and engage in meaningful discussions with all of you who are the voices and the representative of our people, of our planet. And if I can start with the presentation, you can also see that disaster management and mitigation is a crucial aspect of our response to climate change. And as a witness to increasing frequency and intensity weather events like we are having right now in Curacao, the global warming, people are, I'm telling you already, it's becoming warmer, and we peak by using what we also have here, like for example, the natural disaster response manual, but also the risk management and disaster policy. And that's why I got mad respects for the team of ICLAC, because even for me being a member of parliament, it's crazy looking for more information, getting the data, and also going after all these people to get more information for us to put on the data tracker. So yes, as the presentation is also saying, a data-driven discussion and its relevance in territories threatened by the climate change. So we can keep on for the next slide, where you can see how many data we identified. So we identified for like 32 laws on disaster management in 15 countries of the region. So as you can see, the countries with the greatest number of legislations on disaster management, if you can see, are 6 for Barbados, 4 for Costa Rica, 4 for Montserrat, and 3 for Turks and Caicos. If you can already hear, we have to acknowledge also the great effort, for example, for the Latin American country, Costa Rica, for being an example in that way, for being one of the most environmental conscious countries within the number of legislations within the Latin America. But the 63% of laws on disaster management come from the Caribbean. And of course, we have to understand, because when you hear about hurricanes, earthquakes, tsunamis, droughts, floods, landslides, the effects that we have in that case for the Caribbean are much higher. So that's why you see also how much conscious we are about the effects. And I will not recall for all the other leaders within our world and our planet while telling you, put attention to the Caribbean for all the efforts that we have to be given for the work that has to be on climate change and also just transitioning, the specific capacity that we also need within that case. So as we continue with the next slide, you also see that within disaster management and the proposals and the bills, there has been being an introduction of pretty much a lot of more, let's say, increase, better, crecimiento, como se dice in Spanish and Portuguese. There has been like 10 bills and proposals that were introduced between 2021 and 2022. So they haven't been enacted yet, but you see the importance that has been given within the countries of the Latin America and the Caribbean, that you have, for example, in 2021, 4 bills or proposals introduced, but it has been increased by 2022 already with 4 more. And that gives you the importance right now. But for 2023, we didn't have the data yet, but by the end of the year, I truly think that we already have that for specifically. Continuing to the next slide, you see what type of laws, proposals, bills are being made regarding to the key of disaster management. And for example, these are creating federal emergency response governments. So to make a more collective and more identity within the way how we deal with the disaster management for the government in particular, or other are like establishing response mechanism for specific emergencies. So you have different type of emergencies like earthquakes, volcano activities, tsunami, wildfires, but also hurricanes, flood. So you have different type of emergency that they also established response mechanism for them within their laws. Others like developing loss compensation mechanism. In that case, for example, to see how the country's security level for the people that are getting getting affected by climate change or disasters, natural disasters in that case, but also insurances, how to deal with the loss, but also within the states. And in other case, we have the securing funding for emergency response, because that's also very much needed. If you can see hurricanes for us, an example, are pretty much needed when you have to secure funding for emergency responses. As we continue to the next slide, because we're almost finished within the presentation, you see that the earliest legislations on disaster management has been created within our region of the Latin American and the Caribbean. So the Caribbean has the oldest, as you can see, most of them are Caribbean countries. The Caribbean has the oldest disaster management laws within the region, being identified since in 1945 from Turks and Caicos, where you have the Hurricane Relief Ordinance, but also in Barbados in 1951, the Prevention of Floods Act, and within Guyana, so that's one country within Latin America, who had the Fire Prevention Act that we have registered within our tracker. The Barbados disaster management laws are like, for example, the Soil Conservation Scotland District, or in Trinidad and Tobago, you have the Fire Service Act. It's such as kind like the Guyana Act, which is also a disaster management law for fires, wildfires, etc. But you also have that in 1978, Trinidad and Tobago enacted the Disaster Measures Act, and also Grenada with National Disaster Management. But we have within our tracker many more, so you can also see. And for us to continue to the best practices that we have, we can take notice of, for example, the special case of the National Disaster Prevention and Response System of Chile, which is one of the quite new one, because they adapted and renewed also their process. And why, for example, they created the law, was to ensure the adequate disaster risk management, also to order the system according to the different emergency levels and phases of the disaster cycle, but also to implement a clear disaster management within the governments itself. And what does it do? For example, it changed and it replaced the National Emergency Office that Chile had. It replaced it with something much bigger, within the sense that you can put a umbrella under the disaster management. So they created a national disaster prevention and response service to the community. So establishing, for example, the National Disaster Prevention and Response System. How does this work? For example, among other things, it defines the emergency levels that are needed. They develop phases of the disaster cycles. So for example, if you have a tsunami or volcano activity or even earthquakes like you have in Chile, they define phases of the disaster cycle, but it also creates a disaster risk management committee at a national, regional, and communal level. So they have within this law, they have the opportunity to create on all levels a disaster management governance that includes and keeps the people informed. So the tools that they have for using this are, for example, a national policy for risk reduction. They have risk management tools like the risk reduction plans, emergency plan, hazard or risk maps, because the most important thing is to having a roadmap for us to deal with it, and the early warning system. Another case, for example, that is very important for us to take notice of is the case of Turks and Caicos. Within the next slide, you can see the example of how they use it for the case of hurricanes in Turks and Caicos. So they repair with this law is they repair losses caused by the type of emergency, like hurricanes, and they create what they do. They create a system to repair material damages caused by hurricanes. As we all know, hurricanes and tsunamis are in any sense one of the most awful natural disasters that can happen and affect any community. And those affected, how they do it is those affected by the hurricanes must request reparation for the damages caused by hurricanes. So the states decides based on each case which repair will be provided. So the state will cover that within the way that they provided for the law. And to whom is to the legal owners of the property affected by the hurricanes, but also the state may request a payment of up to 10% of the repair if granted. So here you can see through data analysis how we can identify the vulnerabilities and strengths of our territories by developing effective strategies to mitigate risk and allocate resources where they are needed the most. So by sharing these best practices lessons, we can learn and inspire one another, and also with the transparency created with for the OPCC data tracker that we are putting on this virtual platform. It enacts legislation and promotes resilience. It fosters adaptation. It ensures the equitability distribution of resources. And of course, in the face of our current climate crisis, collaboration and knowledge exchange are paramount. So within the OPCC virtual platform and the legislative data tracker that it provides us, it means for us to keep on connecting with each other, learn more from another, but forge partnerships. And as you gave me the task, Carlos, of course, I'll be working even harder to put on getting more Caribbean countries participation from local legislators like me, member of parliament, because it's very important for us to realize that in a collective way, we can be better environmental champions, but learn from each other. And that's why I'm so excited to keep on discussing, to keep on interacting, because everything that awaits us is the best. And I think Sepal Iklak, the work that our founders have been doing, it makes us only to let this opportunity to lay groundwork for a sustainable future, and where our legislative actions align with the urgence of our people and our planet, because we only live on one Earth. And here's where we as environmental champions, even we coming from the islands within the Caribbean, together with the Latin American countries, we can do much better and keep on being the example and the champions that we are. Take care, and thank you very much for all the great work you guys are doing.
Thank you very much, Gwendol, Deputy Representative, Member of Parliament, Gwendol, because you're such a champion that we can relate to, and all your initiatives, your guidance. It's simply great to have you with us. And like I said, you're our whip, as was in the old parties. The whip has to keep everybody together, voting together, and going on with the implementation of the programs. So thank you very much. Agora vamos para a senadora Nancy de la Sierra. O México sempre foi
Now we're
desafio.
going to continue with Senator Nancy. I know Mexico was a challenge for the OPCC. Without Mexico, we would not have secured this, and we would not have had all of Latin America. I apologize if I did not pronounce your name well, Senator Nancy de la Sierra. And I know you work hard as the president of the Environmental Commission, and so we are very pleased to have you here with us today, as well as Senator Raul, who is chair of OPCC in Mexico, played a very important role in establishing, creating the OPCC since Mexico was closely participated with Alicia Bárcena, Secretary of Foreign Affairs in Mexico, who gave the green light to create the OPCC along with the ECLAC initiative. So if you happen to run into Madam Bárcena at some point in time, please congratulate her, and on our behalf, we know that having Mexico's support is critical for the OPCC. So you have 5 minutes.
Diga que os produtos dela, que as atividades delas continuam. ¿Qué tal? ¿Cómo están? Muy buenas tardes. Vamos ter muito essa participação do México, que é crucial para o OPCC. Então, senadora, com muito prazer e honra, te passo a palavra para a sua exposição.
The floor is yours, madam. Go ahead. Good afternoon, everyone. Greetings to all of you. Unfortunately, there is another recording on in the background. The interpreters are receiving interference on both channels. The interpreting into English will reconvene once we have clear audio.
Que preside mi compañero, el senador Raúl Bolaños Cacho, a quien finalmente no le fue posible asistir por un compromiso de actividades legislativas, ya que hoy es día de sesión en el Pleno, porque además tiene alguna intervención. Les dirigiré algunas palabras en nombre del senador Bolaños. Antes, y también quiero reconocer el gran esfuerzo y todo el trabajo que ha realizado el equipo de la CEPAL para hacer realidad este proyecto tan relevante con el que contamos los parlamentarios de América Latina y el Caribe. Qué importante que estamos llevando a cabo este lanzamiento en el marco de la Asamblea General de las Naciones Unidas, que está celebrándose en la ONU, además durante la Semana de Cambio Climático, que tendrá lugar en los próximos días. Como la Comisión de Organismos Internacionales del Senado de México, la cooperación internacional y la solidaridad global son elementos fundamentales que hemos promovido como claves para enfrentar los desafíos internacionales actuales.
Again, the English booth interpreters apologize for not being able to interpret. We have conflicting audio. The English interpretation will commence again once we have clear audio.
A través de la voluntad política, la apuesta a la cooperación internacional para buscar respuestas a problemas comunes. El intercambio de buenas prácticas es fundamental para la lucha contra el cambio climático. Y este observatorio...
It is critical to exchange good practices for fighting climate change, and this is an excellent example of parliamentarian cooperation. We are sure that this will make Latin America a benchmark throughout the world.
Americana, que ha sido uno de los grandes retos que enfrentamos desde hace décadas. Contar con información accesible y veraz de la actividad legislativa de los países latinoamericanos en materia ambiental nos permitirá saber dónde estamos como región y para ello saber a dónde vamos y qué debemos hacer contra la lucha del cambio climático, por lo que esta plataforma se convertirá en un aliado muy importante para nuestra labor legislativa como parlamentarios y será de gran ayuda para el trabajo de nuestros equipos técnicos. Por otro lado, y también quiero compartirles rápidamente la presentación de la Comisión de Medio Ambiente, Recursos Naturales y Cambio Climático de nuestro compañero senador Bolaños, senador mexicano. Les pongo la presentación que espero que me ayude el área técnica a poderla mostrar. Y quiero decirles que en primer lugar esta lámina representa el tema financiero y sostenible de todas las herramientas innovadoras Y quisiera destacar la información que este monitor nos arrojó, ya que contiene datos muy importantes de América Latina y el Caribe. Por ejemplo, se identifican 36 leyes sobre finanzas sostenibles en 17 países de la región. Los países con mayor legislación al respecto actualmente, y hay que reconocerlo, son Chile, Brasil, Colombia y Argentina. En la siguiente lámina quisiera mostrarles que 3 de cada 10 países cuentan solo con una ley sobre finanzas.
Allow me to show you the various countries and the laws that have passed. All this information will be available on the monitor per se. Some of the countries face challenges.
Muestra también que se presentan 13 proyectos de ley sobre
Here we have 13 bills that have been submitted from 2020 to 2022. Unfortunately, to date, none of these reform initiatives have been passed. This slide refers to examples of good practices. Here we can see the first law dating back to 1977, although most of the sustainable funding laws have been passed beginning in 2000. I would also like to point out the various sustainable funding instruments and policies that have been most broadly used throughout the region. For example, national funds, such as climate change funds or water resources, forestry funds, green funds, carbon tax, various mechanisms and payments for environmental services, tax reduction, tax incentives, access to funding, and reimbursable allocations. Now let me refer to several different examples of these instruments that have been implemented in the region. In Mexico, for example, we have an emissions trade system. We also have a carbon tax and a green tax, and these have been in place since 2014. Actually, there's a special tax for protection and services, and fossil fuels are taxed. Fossil fuels allocated for certain actions minus natural gas. And then this tax is managed by the Mexican Finance Ministry, and tax collection has been varied. The Senate and the Commission, presided over by Senator Bolaños, aim to increase the tax because it's one of the lowest globally. The aim is to do this during the first year. It has collected nearly 1 billion pesos so far. Mexican pesos. Allow me to now refer to another interesting case study, Chile, where we have a green tax on car purchases, which allows for moving towards sustainable movement around the cities. It also allows to mitigate greenhouse gases. This tax is calculated in keeping with nitrous oxide emissions and the year, the make of the vehicle and other components. As you can see, the information available on the platform will be very useful for our countries. Allow me to conclude by reiterating that this tool will be a crucial partner for our activities within parliaments. It's a fabulous source of good practices, allowing us to replicate what we can in keeping with our national context. I would like to invite you to bear this in mind, and all of us, the parliamentarians who have been involved with this, will continue to foster its use throughout the various countries. This is a fabulous benchmark tool from the region for the rest of the world. And it's important for all of us to become engaged and involved. I would like to again thank the OPCC team, the ECLAC team, and everyone else who has made this possible. And we within Mexico will be available to provide all of our support. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Senator. You have done a fantastic job at summarizing the activity.
E esperamos contar com toda a sua experiência del senador.
We hope to enjoy all of your experience.
Dessa transição
And
climática.
thank you for your support to this. Again, thank you very much. And we hope to see you in the future at OPCC events. There are a few more individuals I need to thank. The credits continue to roll. Paulina Peña, Mr. Villalobos, Fernando Vilches, Milton G., Sebastián Bizarro, all of the library and web unit team at in Santiago, and the director of the statistics area, Rolando Campo, and my friends from the statistics division, Daniel, Paulina, Brian Newbury, Horacio Castellaro, and Andres Yañez. So thank you to all of you. And now let us move on to the closing remarks. To that end, allow me to invite my dear colleague, practically my Caribbean sister. I'm so appreciative for her support. The ties between the Caribbean and Brazil have always been positive. So it's always an honor and a pleasure to work with my Caribbean sister, Diane Corliss. So Diane, you have the floor for your closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Carlos, and always.
Oh, one moment.
Always an excellent opportunity to work with you. Good afternoon, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It is such a pleasure. I'm extremely pleased and privileged to bring the curtain down on this historic event, which has taken us even closer towards full operationalization of the OPCC, which is such a vital initiative for the countries of our region. This launch of the OPCC virtual platform and the legislative data tracker is the result of over 2 years of hard work by members of parliament and their staff, designated focal points, various government bodies, dedicated consultants, and of course, as Carlos has just acknowledged, our colleagues in Santiago, his team in Brasilia, my team here in Port of Spain. I really want to extend my warmest congratulations to all of them, to all who have contributed to this fantastic work. It is truly an outstanding achievement, and I'm really very pleased that we have brought it to this stage. I want to take a moment to draw attention in particular to the effort of the OPCC to expand and strengthen its activities in the Caribbean. This is so important and very, very welcome indeed. The financial support of the Open Society Foundations was essential in facilitating the engagement of a dedicated consultant to collect and review the legislative data from 9 Caribbean countries. And I'm extremely pleased to let you know now that Caribbean environmental and climate change legislation today represents a significant share of the OPCC database. The Caribbean's specific vulnerabilities to the impacts of climate change make the OPCC a vital initiative for our subregion. The virtual platform and legislative data tracker will be an incredibly helpful tool to support the work of Caribbean ministries of environment in drafting and sponsoring the best legislative initiatives to be appreciated by the subregion's parliaments. I want to encourage all OPCC participants to reach out to your Caribbean counterparts. Invite them to join OPCC. Help us to expand this important initiative in our subregion. I was especially pleased to hear from the dynamic Member of Parliament of Curacao, Gwendol Mercelina. So wonderful to see him again, contributing to our dialogue today and reiterating his commitment to get the word out. I truly hope to see more Caribbean countries joining the OPCC in time to participate in the second Parliamentary Summit, which we will proudly host in Port of Spain next year. Finally, I want to commend all the members of Parliament in Central and South America for their efforts and their leadership in OPCC. This integration is crucial for the creation and strengthening of partnerships for a concerted regional response to the impacts of climate change. This afternoon, we have had very productive, very substantive discussions on critical issues. It has been a meeting that was very rich with information. We discussed the importance of promoting transparency, access to information, and the environmental laws in Latin America and the Caribbean, which is paramount to holding ourselves accountable where the protection of our environment and the achievement of just transition is concerned. I join you all in thanking the distinguished panelists, Honorable Nilto Tato and Deputy Katia Cambronero, for their valuable perspectives that they shared with us. I also want to thank all speakers and esteemed OPCC participants for their contributions to our dialogue this afternoon. I particularly appreciated the mention of the importance of ensuring the involvement of youth and the persons of African descent. We must ensure the involvement of all marginalized and vulnerable groups. This is an initiative that promotes widest engagement and participation. I would also not want to miss the opportunity to join in thanking Gladys Gonzalez for her inspiring leadership of this process, which she's taken it, she's led us this far. We will take the baton and take it further. Before closing this session, I would like to invite all participants to tune in to ECLAC's social media and website, because we will soon release information on the event that the OPCC will organize at COP28, which will take place in November 2023. The OPCC participants and my ECLAC colleagues are currently working on the event program and other details, and we will soon be able to provide you with more information on this. Excellencies and ladies and gentlemen, it is now my great pleasure to close this event, and I again encourage you all to explore the OPCC virtual platform and the legislative data track. And I will see you all in Port of Spain next year. Over to you, Carlos.
Thank you very much, Diane. It's always a pleasure to see you, although through webinar, it's much greater to be with you in presence and to learn so much about the Caribbeans. And I thank you, all your staff, you and your staff, for the work that's been done. So we'll be closing now. Please remember to, like Diane has said, put the word out. Please tell everybody about our new address, opcc.cepal.org, né? Por favor, coloquem, divulguem o site opcc.cepal.org e também
put it on the web. And I'd also like to thank the parliamentarians and all the advisors who work to keep all this updated and useful to everyone. Once again, good afternoon to each one of you, and we will see you soon in the coming OPCC activities. We hope to have a large attendance of you all at the COP in Dubai. Thank you very much and see you. next time. Good afternoon, everyone. Goodbye.
Gracias. Chao.
So.
Ciao.